Hey, what's going on, guys? Heads here from Infinity Loopz, and today we take a look at Happymodel's new bassline, inspired by our boy Nathan Loopz. Let's have a look. This is a 2S 2-inch build, and it weighs right around 40 grams. Apparently, this was inspired by Nathan Loopz all the way back in 2019, which I didn't know. But apparently this has been an idea that's been brewing for a while, and now we finally have it in a bind and fly. Mine came with the X12 that was running ELRS 2.0, as well as OpenVTX that was power switchable up to 400 milliwatts. It's using the EX1103 11,000 kV Happymodel motors. We have a Cadex camera, and when I ran it on these 2S 450 China Hobbyline batteries, I got about 3.5 to 4 minutes. Now, I should mention, when I was going to try this out the first time, I tried using the stock battery holder, and they do list that it will only hold up to a certain size battery. These 450s, however, by China Hobbyline are a bit thick, so I did have to hop in Tinkercad and just make a little bit larger version of what they had. I'll include a link down below to this on Thingiverse. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and skip all the pleasantries and just go check out some first flights on our bassline.
Lost. Telemetry recovered.
Oh, I broke it. That's happened maybe twice in my FPV experience, where I have gotten a quad bind and fly, and on my maiden flight I destroyed it. Doesn't happen often, so pat on the back for me. That's pretty good. It's been a long time, so nice to relive that. Anyhow, what happened was I was doing a Matty flip over a tree, biting off a little more than I probably should have, and I clipped a branch, which made me stay upside down and basically just throttle straight down into the ground. So the canopy smashed, and when the canopy smashed, it pushed the camera down, which broke the camera, and the camera pushed into the flight controller, which broke the VTX. And then the ELRS lost signal and just locked in two of these back motors, kept spinning after it crashed, burned the propellers down, probably did a little damage to the motors, I'm sure, but they're all still flying. So this is no longer the bassline. I have now been calling this the Brokeline, and this is my version of the bassline, still using the same frame and motors. I did have to replace the flight controller. This is an older X12 flight controller in here. Still an X12, not running ELRS anymore though, unfortunately. So a little different protocol on this flight controller. However, flight controller is still the same. The camera, I did not have an extra Cadex ant around, so we instead have our Razer Pico, which I have plenty of those around, so we're using that, as well as a B-Brain V2 canopy from Newbie Drone. The reason I'm using that is just it's a little bit more robust, we should say, than the one that came on the bassline. That one had the durability of a potato chip for me, I probably just hit it in a very good spot, a very perfect spot to cause all of that destruction. But either way, it's back up and flying, and it still weighs exactly 40 grams. So no harm, no foul. The other change that I made to it that I should mention is that it is now running Quicksilver as the firmware. I got rid of Betaflight when I put this flight controller in. It was a used flight controller, already had Quicksilver on it, didn't feel like messing with any of that, so I changed the tune up, and that's it. Just sent it the way that it was. So now that all of that has been repaired and explained to you, let's see some actual flight footage of what this thing can do when it's not being plowed directly into the pavement.
RF signal critical. Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered. Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered. Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered.
Over the last few weeks that I've had this quad and I've been flying it / breaking it to pieces, I reached out to Nathan Loopz myself just to ask him if there was anything interesting about the build that maybe I could share with you guys or maybe somebody missed in the past. And not anything too crazy, although he did want to clarify that the name of it is actually the Bassline, not Bassline. But the Bassline comes from, one, because the build as it is fairly basic, something you can jump off from, a good starting point for anybody trying to make a little 2S yard ripper, as well as bassline as in music bassline. He's a big fan of drum and bass and electronic music, hence the loops, the looping of audio in his name. So that is also where the Bassline name came from. So that's interesting. Also, he told me that this build has been in his mind since 2019, pre-COVID, and he pitched the idea to Happymodel when this was an 1102, not 1103, but 1102 build with a TPU canopy, and I believe he said it was an 80-ish millimeter frame, so a little different from the changes that he told me Happymodel decided to make on it. So the canopy, the frame change, and the motor change were all things that they had done, I guess, to meet their liking. But overall, at a price point of $118.99, currently sold out on race day quads, I think this is actually a pretty nice little Bassline. I think they hit the nail right on the head as far as with the name. So if you're in the market for something like a good jumping off point to start a nice 2S 2-inch build for your front yard or a local park, maybe look at the Bassline if you can find it in stock anywhere. It's definitely a great jumping off point. It's a great starter quad frame, especially. It's very tanky, the frame is. I kind of just wish that the canopy matched the tankiness of the frame. They did try to make the canopy a little more aerodynamic and lighter, I'm sure, by taking out a lot of the fat and a lot of the meat out of the middle of it. However, I think doing that, they did cause it to be a little fragile for 2S. Just my opinion. I did have a very once-in-a-lifetime kind of crash where things just worked out perfectly to make it extremely catastrophic. So maybe the canopy's fine. Maybe it is tough enough, and I just was a little too tough on it. Maybe. I'm not willing to put all the blame on Happymodel. But overall, I'm a big fan of Nathan Loopz. I'm a big fan of this little quad here. I like this as a jumping off point, in my opinion, and it's unique in its build. I do like things that are not like everything else. This doesn't just look like the average, normal, scrawny-armed 2-inch toothpick that you would see. So I appreciate that. I like when they're doing a little something extra with it, and I think Happymodel and Mr. Nathan Loopz have done that with the Bassline. I'll leave a link down below if you would like to try to get your hands on one of these. Again, that's if it's in stock. I'll try to find a link where it is in stock, and hopefully it still is by the time you see this video. Also down below, I will leave links to the Thingiverse page where you can get this battery mount if you need one that's a little larger than whatever batteries you're using now. Finally, I want to wrap up by saying thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, and we will see you in the next one.